Transforming your life with hypnotherapy just got easier with your host, Julie from CoachingHypnosis.net.
Welcome back, dear listener, to Coaching Hypnosis. We're on day 10 of our 30-day countdown, the world's darkest hypnosis cases. Yesterday, we unmasked the satanic panic therapist who used leading questions to turn ordinary anxieties into imaginary goat sacrificing cults. Today, we're heading into the dense frozen wilderness of Quebec, Canada, during the late 1970s and 80s, to look at a case that is widely considered one of the most physically brutal examples of total behavioural control in modern history. Today, we decode the dark psychology of Roch Thériault and the Ant Kids. Roch Thériault was a charismatic seven-day Adventist who convinced a group of loyal followers that a literal cosmic doomsday was imminent. He marched them out into the Canadian woods, away from society, to build a commune. He called his followers his ants, explicitly telling them that they were cogs in a machine, meant only to work, obey, and lose their individuality. Now, if you read the standard true crimes account of this group, you will hear a laundry list of unimaginable horrors, forced labour, horrific physical mutilations, and absolute tyranny. Thériault was eventually arrested in 1989 and sentenced to life in prison, where the story finally ended in 2011. But the question that leaves most people completely paralysed is, why didn't they just walk away? They weren't locked in cells. They were in the middle of a vast forest with plenty of opportunities to flee. The public assumes it was just physical terror, but as a clinical hypnotist, I look deeper. Thériault didn't just rule through fear. He utilised a savage cocktail of hypnotic pain modulation, chemical sedation and severe sleep deprivation to perform a total neurological hijack on his followers. Let's look at the actual clinical architecture of how he turned a group of rational adults into a compliant workforce that willingly submitted to their own destruction. Roch Thériault understood that to completely dominate a human being, you have to break their relationship with their own physical body. He accomplished this by establishing himself as the ultimate spiritual healer of the commune. Whenever a member felt ill or required medical attention, Thériault strictly forbade outside doctors. Instead, he would perform complex, agonizing medical procedures right on the kitchen table with absolutely zero anesthesia. From a clinical standpoint, this sounds like pure chaotic sadism, but he was utilizing a highly calculated, primitive version of a hyper-aroused shock induction. Before the procedure, he would force the member to fast for days, pump them full of homemade alcohol, and keep them awake for 48 hours straight. By the time they were on the table, their nervous system was already completely fried. He would then look directly into their eyes, use a slow, booming, authoritative vocal cadence, and command them to transcend the pain, claiming that the agony was their sinful nature being burned away. Step 1. Physiological deprivation, fasting, chemical sedation, and 48-hour sleep deprivation. Step 2. Severe shock influx. Intense physical pain overrides the critical faculty. Step 3. Total hypnotic capture. Subconscious accepts the abuser as the only source of relief. In hypnosis, we know that intense acute physical shock combined with authoritative vocal suggestion can cause the brain's critical faculty to completely snap. The mind experiences a massive dissociative split to protect itself from the trauma. In that deeply fractured, hypersuggestible state, the patient's brain anchors the abuser not as the source of the pain, but as the only saviour who can take the pain away. Let's look at the absolute terrifying absurdity of this dark wellness scam. Thériault literally convinced his followers that a man performing amateur, unanesthetized surgery with a rusty hacksaw on a kitchen table was a profound act of divine medical grace. Let's be completely real. If you go to a holistic wellness retreat today because you have a bad back and the guru pulls out a literal garage tool set, demands you to drink a bottle of cheap gin, and tells you that your herniated disc can only be healed by cleansing your spiritual aura through a DIY spinal alignment, you are running out there so fast you leave skid marks. It is an unhinged boundary violation, but under the spell of they riault's intense hypnotic lock, his followers didn't just lie on the table, they actively thanked him for the mutilation, completely convinced that their survival depended entirely on his horrific interventions. What makes the Anthill Kids case one of the darkest files in psychological history is that they riault managed to turn his followers' own survival mechanisms against them. Once a brain disassociates to survive trauma, the abuser effectively owns the psychological landscape. He overrode the survival instincts using 3 distinct clinical mechanisms. 1. The dissociative anchor. By repeatedly forcing his followers into states of extreme physical shock, they riault trained their minds to completely detach from their physical bodies on command. Once a person is entirely disassociated from their physical sensations, standard warnings like pain, exhaustion, and fear completely lose their power to motivate action. 2. Metaphorical identity collapse. By explicitly labeling his followers as ants, they riault use continuous hypnotic repetition to overwrite their individual egos. In a hyper-suggestible state, the subconscious brain takes metaphors entirely literally. If your brain fully accepts the baseline instruction that you're just a nameless, expendable insect in a colony, your natural human instinct to protect your personal life and well-being completely evaporates. 3. Monopoly on relief. By keeping his followers in a permanent loop of chemical sedation, physical exhaustion, and erratic psychological rewards, they riault became their entire world. Their subconscious mind calculates the forest is freezing, society is dead, and Roch is the only one who can grant me relief or validation. The mind chooses to stay in the nightmare simply because the alternative has been hypnotically framed as total cosmic annihilation. This is the ultimate warning of the power of psychological coercion. Roch Thériault proved that you don't need iron bars to keep people in a prison. If you can control a person's sleep, manipulate their chemical chemistry, and use trauma to force a dissociative split in their mind, you can make them build the very walls that trap them. The enduring, profound lesson of the Anthill Kids is that your physical body, your health, and your comfort are sacred, unshakable boundaries. Any framework, any mastermind, or any guide that requires you to exhaust your physical frame, ignore your body's cries for help, and endure severe psychological or physical pain under the guise of breakthrough limits or cleansing your ego is an absolute threat to your sovereignty. Real ethical leadership honors your health, respects your physical boundaries, and keeps you safely anchored in your own well-being. No survival tactics or structural submission required. If you have found yourself caught in a high-pressure corporate or personal loop where you are actively ignoring your health, overriding your exhaustion and running your nervous system into the absolute ground just to stay validated, it's time to stop the machine. You don't have to be fueled by pain, physical exhaustion, or constant crisis to build an extraordinary career or life. You will go much further when you're fueled by peace. If you're ready to put that invisible weight down, reconnect with your body's true wisdom, and lead with a clear, unburdened, and completely sovereign mind, I invite you to book your free 40-minute clarity call. Together, we will clear the external noise, re-anchor your nervous system in absolute safety, and install a powerful, unshakable subconscious identity grounded in your current real-world health. Remember, aligned subconscious plus healed history equals unshakable leadership. Thank you for listening. Align your mind. Visualize your future. Grow your business. Mindfully yours, Julie.